here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is the, February 7th Policy and Governance meeting. Since Kim's not here, that's for you, Kim, when you listen to this and transcribe it word for word, verbatim. We have a packed house, Kim. You missed out on everything. So, again, thank you for being here. The first, I call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to take a look at the December 6th minutes. Did anybody have any suggestions, additions, comments, deletions, et cetera, et cetera? I know it's a long time ago, and it was riveting in December. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor of it? That's going to be me. Aye. Okay. So, moving on to item B, the ends policies. Here we are, languishing in the ends policies still. So, I'm assuming everybody had an opportunity to look over these. And did we feel they were reflective of the conversation that we had had?
So can I throw out just?
Please do.
All right. So the last time, we wrote the ends policy with the data kind of woven in, because I didn't, I'll be honest, understand what the appendix really did. So what I'm wondering is so this time when I put into board docs a very short, just abbreviated summary of if we wanted to take the ends policy and take that data out of each of the reading, math, and science, it could be as short and as simple as what's written on that sheet, which is basically your 3 goals or annual achievement will be as high or higher than previous years. And we would have that for reading and for math and for science. It would be repeated. And then on average, achievement will increase at a rate equal to or greater than the national average, so that's your growth. And then your achievement gaps between subgroups will decrease from previous years, so that's the achievement gap piece. So you basically have just 3 simple goals for reading, math, and science. And then the data then is reflected in the appendix part of it that we can look at.
Kim, are you pulling that up for us?
I guess I just have one question on it.
Yep.
So one of the highlighted ones on the academic ends policy, reading, math, and science, where it says achievement gaps between subgroups will decrease from previous years. I'm just curious if that's how we want that stated, or if the top is staying the same and the bottom is coming up, then you're not increasing the top at all. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone can move up,
And the gap would remain.
but
So,
you know what I'm saying? I don't want to top the top people out.
I think it's reflective of what we previously had with the quartiles, when it was the lower quartile difference. The lower quartile will show improvement, the upper quartile will show at least maintenance, and since we don't have quartiles reported anymore, it's in line with, it's reflective of the previous wording. So
I feel like, Paul, that first one, that annual achievement will be as high or higher, would maybe help the fact that we want, and the second one is the growth. So the first one is we want our average to get bigger, better. The second one is we want our growth to increase. And then the third one is now we want those gaps to show it as well. So I feel like you've got all 3 facets taken care of there.
Sorry, I got them up now, so if you need anything, let me know. I'll pull up the overhead sheet. You can see them.
So we would just copy those 3 into the reading and the math and the science. And unfortunately, the writing and the social studies, I don't know what that's going to look like as far as data that we're going to be able to get for that, depending on what test we end up giving.
Which we don't know yet.
Exactly. Do we know anything?
all facts.
So I don't know if it's easier to look at that then in conjunction with the appendix, or if you just want to look at that separately. So, because in the appendix then,
Right.
I show you how you measure each one of those.
Right. And I guess
And that's this one.
I think that's kind of why we're tackling it all in one,
Mhm.
because it does go hand in hand. As, you know, considering we started off, what we were scheduled to do was, reading, math, or was it reading, writing, and fine arts, I think?
Maybe.
Is what we start, yeah, reading, writing, and fine arts is what we started off with. You know, I think that we're just noting the changes in verbiage, the changes in the way that we take measurements and report back. I think that it's useful to do all of it at once. So, I mean, whatever you want, honestly.
Well, if we could look then at the appendix 4.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But you got up there, see some things. You're
Thought I
good.
put the other one up.
So number 1 is one that's been there. We can continue to do it. That's just looking at school norms. That really doesn't directly relate to any of your academic ends, because your academic ends are district-wide, and this is school-wide. So we can continue to do that for reading, math, and science, for sure. I don't know about language. So that's why I'm recommending we take off language. And then the second one is looking at your same grade comparison. So you're looking at 3rd grade this year, the 3rd grade the last year, the 3rd grade the year before. So we're trying to make sure that we're improving our achievement. So that really relates to that first goal, which is annual academic achievement
Mhm.
will be as higher than previous years for same grade groups.
Mhm.
I took off language again. I changed multiple to 4 years, thinking that's pretty much what we've been sharing with you, but that we can change that. I changed Iowa assessments to state mandated assessment because we don't know for sure what that's going to be next year.
Right.
And then I just listed that we would do that through the reporting of national standard scores. I took out the line graphs because I'm not sure if that's, if you want it to stay as a line graph, we can, but it might be a better way to show that.
Mhm. Seems a bit too prescriptive.
It seemed. 3 I took off
5 and 6 we
because
scratched.
we can't really do matched cohorts, which is kid to kid,
Right.
but we can in 4 do unmatched cohort groups, which is basically 3rd grade several years ago to 4th grade the next year to 5th grade the next year to 6th grade the next year.
Okay.
So that showing 3rd, 4th to 5th to 6th really kind of shows that we're increasing each grade group, each cohort group each year, that they're improving. And then I took out your quartiles in 5 and 6. And then 7 really ends up being, instead of NCLB, it's ESSA now.
Mhm.
Again, state mandated assessments, again, 4 years. And in that reporting, we do have to report percent of kids who are proficient and then do that by subgroups and really look at decreasing that gap between subgroups.
So here's the 10,000 foot perspective. Can we, based on the data we receive and the measurements that we take in the various subject areas, can we report the data now to comply with what's being proposed here for Appendix 4? Could we report the data the way it was reported before?
No,
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
right.
I'm glad, thank you for
And-
doing the word salad on this.
And looking at smarter balanced, I'm
Yes.
confident we can report it this new way, but not the old way.
Okay.
Can I just ask a random question?
Go for it.
I don't know if you can answer it or not. We're on the record, so I'm just, do we think as a district, this is not about our kids per se, that we can do this?
Close these gaps?
I think we can close these gaps.
I think that should be our goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Certainly,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, over 10 times over. I mean, I'm just saying they have been in existence for so long,
Yep.
and I mean, I don't know. I just wonder about like when,
When, we'll see.
Yeah.
because we've been talking about achievement gaps nationally. God, I don't even remember for how long. And so-
1983.
Okay. I was 2. Just want you to know that. Okay. So I'm just saying.
Your twins are 2 now.
I'm grown as ever. Now my kids are 2. It's another generation, and we're still
Yeah.
saying we want to close the achievement gap. So I, there's this part of me that's like,
I think-
yes, I would like this to be closed.
I think we come every day with that mindset, and that's the work that we're doing every
Yeah.
day to try to improve, whether it's through the special ed lens, the ELL lens, the FRL lens, and you can just look at different book studies that we're doing, different implementation pieces that we're trying to put together. I think a tool that we have at our fingertips that at the elementary level through our universal screener, through Iowa Tier and the FAST assessments, we're able to extract and download data throughout the screening window. As the screening window closes, I've had 2 principals in the last week email me their data disaggregated by race about how their kids have grown and where we're excited, what celebrations that we can do. So they're paying attention. And the work that we're doing around cultural competency and implicit bias, and then asking them to include an equity goal within their CSEP, they're focused. And I haven't been in the district very long, but I can't imagine, compared to other district work that I've worked in, that focus is unlike anything I've ever seen before.
No, I mean, I'm hopeful, right? Because I know that we're doing all these things.
Structurally, the weighted resource allocation
Yeah.
model. I think the thing that gives me hope about it is, and I'd echo the things that Amy said, but I think another thing that gives me hope is there's been awareness since 1983 when the Coleman Report came out. There's been awareness, but teachers were still teaching in isolation. Professional development was not geared towards helping them understand where the gaps were. And when you go into an elementary professional learning community group, one of those PLC groups now, the conversation that you hear, even from teachers that are right out of school, is so different than it was just 5 years ago. That conversation is very, very focused. The gaps are not, they're not unspeakable. They're actually a central focal point of the conversation. And from that standpoint, I think that's different. So that gives me a sense of hope that it's not just getting the structures in place, putting the tools out there, but I think the staff have grown from a mindset standpoint, and the expectations then are different. And that's going to take some time for that tree to bear fruit, but at the same time, I think that the potential is far greater than I've seen it before.
I think of a
I'm
few
just
things.
asking.
Yeah.
I wasn't picking
No.
on anybody. I
No.
just
No,
think
it's
it's
a
a
good
good
question.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry, I'm just
No.
like, is there hope?
That's what we talk
You have
about.
to
Because I
have
think we
knowledge
have
as
to
a
have
board
that.
member too
Yeah.
of all the good
Yeah.
things that we're doing to try
Yeah,
to support the work, and just me
Yeah.
sharing some things out loud. We've got a document that we've put together that shows, under the different lenses of what we're trying to do. We have to be careful sometimes that we're not doing too much. It's incredibly hard for us to isolate the variables which are causing
Yeah.
increases because of all the things that we're doing. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Matt, I totally stomped on what you were
No,
going to
you're
say.
fine. I just think we've been talking about it, but did we know what to do? You know, and I'm not sure how long Iowa City's talked about it in comparison to how long other groups have talked about it. I mean, I think so we're not only talking about it, but we feel like we know what we're doing, right? And that we know how to attack some of these things. And can we fix all those variables, to Steve's point or Amy's point about, we can't isolate all those things, but we do have a plan and we do have a vision and a strategy. And, if you don't believe that, you're not in the right district to be in, I think is kind of the cut to the chase of what Amy would say, compared to a lot of other parts of the state or country to look at. I mean, we're committing a tremendous amount of resources and have a plan about how we plan to attack those gaps. I mean, that's the thing we start with our principals, that I hope they start with their staff. If they don't believe that, then you're in the wrong spot, because that's the work in front of us. That's what we have to do.
The other thing that I think is incredibly, telling and touching and all of those fun words is just the emphasis, and I think in particular around our Title I principals, not that I couldn't say this about all 20 elementary principals, but they are so open-minded to ideas, anything that we want to bring them. We sit through sign of governance meetings with them, and they're so open to that. They're willing to bring their own ideas. We aren't so set in stone that what we're doing has to be the only way. We've allowed some flexibility through use of our ELI funding, through some different pilots to let some things happen. And whereas before we might have had the mantra, everything has to be standardized, guaranteed and viable curriculum across the district. We want to let some pilots happen because you can't, what's the adage? You can't continue to expect different results if you're doing the same thing, right? So I feel like we've stepped into that territory too, which feels good.
So I guess back to this, as from like a standpoint of a board, like, so that's this piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
What needs to be here? I know
Yeah.
as a social worker, I know what needs to happen on this side, right? Like, I know we need to address poverty, blah, 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 right? Institutional, structural, societal, crazy. You know, so you all are doing this piece, but like, what needs to happen here?
What,
What's
I'll just say this being my second
This is
go
here
around.
would be like school board, legislate, I mean, like,
Yep.
is it important? I mean, I know in our, I'm sorry, Brian.
No,
I gotta,
no.
I gotta get my thought out.
No, get it.
Get my thought.
Go.
I know that the district has an equity goal.
Right.
I mean, we have just a strategic goal is to address these things.
Yep.
In general, it's
Yep.
it's about infusion. That's the word I'm using for education right now. We need to infuse this up. It just has to be something that
That's
we
exactly
do, not something that, oh, we have to add on, because like that's been part of the problem, right? And so I'm looking for, as a board member, as a community member, to people who get paid to do like you know policy stuff. Like, what needs to be in place here that we can continue to support this, and we can get the outcomes that we're looking for, because it's not, I realize that we can put as much pressure as we want on teachers, administrators, etc., but there's still other pieces to this about how we get to our achievements. So we can write it, and it's beautiful, thank you. But like, what are the other pieces that need to be here? Is it just the board having their board goal of, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, how do we do that piece is going to be the question of, I'm only here for however many more months or whatever. And, you know, I pray to the good Lord and the universe that people will come behind and will still remain, that will keep this as a focal point. There's no guarantee of that.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw in the perspective of this being the second time going through the ends policies in Appendix 4 from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to what the board needs, you use the perfect word, infuse. I would like to see us honestly, realistically disaggregating this data and reporting on it and saying there's a problem and we're going to do this, we're going to fix this, and having it reported and having it be so ingrained in our policy over and over and over again that the way we, I mean this one, Appendix 4, the way we see our data allows us to not just go, oh, there's nothing going on over here. Because we need to confront it, right? We need to confront this problem. Because the way the first time we went through this 3 years ago, when I was a first year board member, we talked, you know, you look at what, everything's crossed out here, and everything's highlighted. The highlighted stuff wasn't there. The crossed out stuff was. And I mean, there's no mention of it. None. And that's like,
to my point about how long have you really been involved in?
right, we've been looking at numbers,
Yeah.
but this is going to say, okay, we can disaggregate this data by subgroups. Boom. Here's the problem. I mean, otherwise we're just dancing around the problem and saying, well, you know, it's not getting better. Well, it's because we're not even reporting on it.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And you're right.
It's that.
We're all here
It's
for
that
limited
pressure
time.
piece, right? That pressure piece of how do we continue to do that? I mean, and that's
Can't
outside of
fix
this.
it
I'm only here
if
for
you're not
2.5
looking.
more years or whatever.
7 months.
But okay, whatever. But I'm just trying to see like what we can report on this, but over time these become numbers in other people's heads that we're not. You know, I was just looking over the annual report today, and it's still it's heartbreaking to me to keep seeing that not proficient. And seeing our black kids just in our Latino kids being so high, like, I mean, and I know you all.
55%.
if you go through each one, it
Yeah.
goes up and down, but
Yep.
I haven't seen our kids over 50%. Not in,
But
you know what I'm
doesn't-
saying? Like, every once in a while, it's like a 48%, and I feel a little bit of something, you know, and so one of these days, I would like to see that number to 25 or to 10 or to 0, you know. And so, but it's just been so many years, so that's why I'm saying, like, in my lifetime, do we think that we can get that to 25 or to, you know, I mean, it's 30. Okay, I'll do 32. To make some changes there, that it, you know, is, you know, with the twin mom thing, it's like, okay, which one?
Yeah.
But I always tell patients, if you're not measuring, you can't tell if you've made an improvement.
True,
Right.
true.
So we haven't been measuring.
I mean,
We've
and
been
that's
measuring, We
true.
haven't done anything about it.
We haven't done anything
Yeah.
about the
I mean, that's the
They've
thing,
had
so
it for
like you
years.
said, you've been spinning around this data, or the education community's been spinning around this disproportionate data, but has there been a plan to attack that? I mean, I think you guys just looking at some of the things you've done from a board table level about, you know, transportation to school or class size and how you've allocated resources there. I mean, I think to Amy's point about helping you guys articulate to the community, these are the things we're doing to attack this. You know, so not only have we kind of sat on the problem, and I'm not talking about just Iowa City, I'm talking about more education.
The
community,
nation as a
sat on
whole.
this problem of disproportionality.
Mhm.
You know, now that we're starting to implement some strategies to attack it, you know, when do you start to see some differences in that? And
Yeah.
it's not a quick turnaround, but at the
Of
same
course
time, you
not.
should start to see some
Something.
impact based on now people are paying attention and they're trying to do things to differentially account for that problem.
Well, the reason I think that this is important and words are important and they outlast whatever tenure you have or I have, is that I would like to see a future board argue why they should take that out of our policies. I want to get it in our policy so that a future board member would, a future board committee like us would have to sit here 10 years from now and say, you know, I don't think it's important that we talk about that anymore. Let's take that out. I'd like to see them justify that.
Oh, yeah, that'll be interesting.
Exactly. That's why I think it's critical that we do this.
So that means-
Well, I think one of the things that it
I'll come to
does
that meeting, I'll sit right next to you.
is
Throw stuff.
is for us, and actually when you drill down for the teachers who we've been talking about, to help them understand what we think is important. I think that's one of the key things that board goals do for us, is it helps us carry the message. We've got 2,000 employees in the district. We've got 1,000 teachers in the district. Most of them don't interact with you on a daily basis. Most of them don't interact with me or Amy or Matt or Diane on a daily basis. So they need to understand what we think is important. And so one of the ways that we can convey to them those things that we think are important are things that last a long time, board goals, or I'm sorry, board policies. And then those things that last a shorter time, which help us move those board policies forward, which are board goals. And so they really, to your point, those words carry our message and share our emphasis with them. So when we talk about we're going to disaggregate data and we're going to look at it, then when you go out to the buildings and you talk to the teachers and you talk to the building administrators and they are talking to you about doing that, why are they doing that? Because they understand it's important to us. It's important to us and it becomes important to them. It sheds a light on the issues that we see as problems, which then gives us the opportunity, once the light's been shed on them, to address them and try to remediate them so they don't stay in the shadows. And that's the strongest thing I think that our board policies and then our board goals do for us as an organization, is it makes sure that the light is on the right thing. Because there are a million things we could focus on. But when you look at board goals that say reading and math, and then the environment that affects performance in those areas, it sends a pretty strong message that we've got a laser-like focus on what it is that we're working on right now.
Right, but what I appreciate this second time going around is that we have our strategic plan, we have our strategic goals, and that allows me to look at this through the lens of what we're trying to achieve
Sure.
with our strategic goals.
They go back and
Here's-
forth.
Yeah, so it just,
The
The
one
lenses
piece
in
that
place.
I get concerned about with all of this,
labels.
no, it's not that, is about support and restoration. And as a person who does diversity training, organizational development, blah, 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 I do stuff, is for folks to have space to win. So what happens in our district from a climate standpoint, back to our board goals, et cetera, is if some teacher does something to hurt a child, I mean like emotionally, climate, something, there's no restoration that happens for that kid or that staff. There, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no, what happens is the I've seen this happen literally where teachers, I'm not going to interact with them because I don't want to offend them further. Like that's like grown people stuff. Like that's actually what teenagers do. She ain't my friend no more. So I mean, like, but that's what happens, and so we have a little bit of that. And what happens is that child that maybe there was a racial comment and that person didn't mean it, and they say sorry, but there's no, okay, let's process through that, because that's the issue that I see that we continue to have with climate. If we're talking about pushing these board goals, with our climate, there is no support and restoration that if you make a mistake, you have to fix it. You can't just be sorry, because sorry don't do nothing for me. Great, I'm so glad. But what's the restoration piece, and what is the support that people can feel and need to be like, okay, you know, I made this mistake. People are, you know, what I hear is it's harder to apologize to a child than another adult. But I think it's necessary if we want to change our climate. And so with those pieces, the restoration and the support to do that, about how do we come back to the middle, I think it's going to be really important about this being something that is going to be culture change in our district. Because we can change the numbers, we can push to read harder, read faster, you know, we can do that, but if we don't change the environment where we all feel like we can make mistakes and we can be our own authentic selves in this space as I learned, then that's going to hinder kids from.
So I'm thinking about our survey for our kiddos, and what gets measured gets done is that other adage that we often hear in education. So just for the staff becoming aware now, what sits in that survey, what's being monitored over time, you know, if you're making a comment, kids are picking up on it. It's just, it'll be interesting to see if our data can swing over time based on just knowledge back to our staff about how our kids are feeling, or what they're overhearing, or what their circumstance has been. I can't help but think that we're not going to see some movement on that in that area as well.
And that's what the hope is that it's not just an expose, but it's okay, we see this now, we have data to support this, what can we be doing? Because we can teach implicit bias, but then if we don't support people and how they continue to address that, then we never get to that, and then we continue where we are. We fix this piece, but we don't fix this, and this is the wet napkin, right? It falls through. So it's like, what can we do to do both pieces? Because the problem, that's the thing about infusion, is about we have to do these pieces together. It's multi-tiered. You can't just like, we're just gonna fix this and not fix this. You know, this will work without and don't. So I mean,
Yeah, and I would say that if you looked at where we were at 5, 6, 7 years ago when I came to the district and where we're at today, you see that what I'm hearing you talking about is a multi-layered approach. And you see more of those layers now than we had even 5 years ago. Universal deployment of MTSS, universal deployment, multi-tiered systems of support, universal deployment of positive behavior intervention supports. So you see more universal deployment of these things that are beyond the academic supports. So where's the socio-emotional support for kids? Training on how to deal with ACEs, the adverse impact in the classroom. So I think that there is a greater level of awareness and understanding and hopefully capacity for staff to deal with those. And then the other piece that I heard you talk about, which is I think a next step for us, is that restorative justice piece, because at some point we go through and we have the ability to close the loop. And I think there were significant gaps in that process. And if we want kids to learn and achieve at a high level, it's not enough to simply focus on the academics.
right.
And we spent a lot of time 7 years ago when I got here focused on the academics. We've spent a lot of time since then saying, how do we close that loop? How do we make sure that, to your point, kids are in school, kids are fed, kids feel nurtured and safe, kids know what the rules are, how to follow them, what the consequences are. So you start to close that gap, close those spaces in the loop. And now, as we get to the point where I feel like we're running with this more than walking or crawling, is staff are focused academically on closing these gaps. Kids understand it and they can talk about it. So now they own their own learning. Both staff and kids have a better understanding and control of the environment within which they're learning. Do we still have some room to move? Yeah, I think we do, based on the conversation you were talking about in terms of conversation kids were having at City Eye today. I don't think that loop is completely closed, but I think there are far fewer openings than there were just 5 years ago. And that's, I said before, those are the things that hold out hope for me, because just telling kids that they needed to learn and giving them the academic tools has not been working. So can we then create the environment which allows them to take advantage of that which they have? And that's one of the awesome things about Iowa City, is we know that the longer they stay with us, the more they grow.
Right.
Now the question is, how can we take that and accelerate it so that it happens faster? And that's where I think we're kind of on that cusp of being able to do that. I think about what we're seeing at Kirkwood right now, with the AVID program over there, and the different way that kids are talking about their own learning. So their metacognition is in a completely different place than Kirkwood was even a couple of years ago. So, I think that flywheel is starting to turn faster, and I think we're going to see significant results for kids.
So, just in the interest of us moving the committee meeting along, I do think that the question is incredibly valid, and I hope that when we take this to the board to say, we've reviewed this in accordance with our timeline, I hope that we can have some of this, replicate some of this discussion in a meeting when there's actually people here, because this is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sad that it's going on back here and there's nobody to hear, except
All right.
us who already believe it.
Yes, I know, but even for myself, sometimes I need to have this and not. I mean, I don't mind if the public is here, but I have to have hope in my own heart and mind as I do this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I need to be able to be at a place where, maybe I'm not on the spotlight in front of the camera where I can hear this differently. I hear differently in different spaces. And so the question wasn't to go into all this, but for me, I needed to hear this for me. And so it allows me to be able to feel more compassionate about all the work that we're doing and have more passion for the push for our community to work.
So that's what I hear from everybody, all the educators here, is the passion for doing this. And I'd like that.
Yeah, we can do that.
So if this is the dress rehearsal for what we talk about up there, I
I will
love
have
it.
my hair cute, makeup on. I'll be ready. I will be ready.
My question, Diane,
Yeah.
is back to since we're kind of doing Appendix 4 and the ends
Yes.
stuff all at the same time, and we didn't really talk about character development and fine arts. I know it wasn't part of our initial charge, but I like what you did with reading, math, and science, just going back and forth between what we had and what you have. I like what you did simplifying writing and social studies versus what we had and what we have. Character development and fine arts, fine arts is very, very new, and we have the statement in there about disaggregated subgroups. Character development is fairly new as well. if
It
I
is,
recall. It was just
since I've been
added.
here.
Yeah.
Fine arts too.
Yeah, fine arts was just added like 3 years ago.
Yep, they've both been added since I've been here.
So those are maybe more reflective of current ideas and terminology. I would just say that if we can put what you've done with reading, math, and science and the writing and social studies and throw it with character development, fine arts, and present it to the board, then we can come back and get the ends policies done.
Okay. So.
Unless there's something to add direct to Wrestler, director to Love.
Within the appendix, so you're talking about,
I'm talking
are you
about,
talking about rewording the goals as well?
no, I'm
Or
talking
just
about
how to measure them?
the ICCSD school board policies, ends policies. It used to say ends policies has like 3 paragraphs at the top, and then it goes into reading. Do you see what I'm talking about? It's one of those attachments there. It's the
3-pager, ends policy.
Okay, yep,
it's the 3-pager.
yep.
So I was going to say, if you take what you put on that 1-pager and throw it into the 3-pager, then I think we're golden.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Do you want me, were you saying that you wanted me to rework the character and the fine arts as well?
No,
Okay, all right.
leave
great.
those alone.
Great, yes. Exactly.
We've,
Just slip
we've
those
done
in
more.
there.
We've got A+ work.
Okay, yes.
Outstanding. Thank you for doing that. We've done more than what we initially intended to
Okay.
do, and it's going to help the future board policy and governance committee.
Yes, I will slip those, take those pieces and I'll put those in that policy, definitely.
So for the next 3 years, we're good on that one.
Good, good.
But no, I think that'll be really good to come to the board with it all kind of morphed into one
Yes.
thing.
Mhm, definitely.
Next year, y'all can do whatever you want to do with math,
This is gonna be like a slow funeral service.
probably,
So is that too?
probably.
Lord Jesus.
Of New Orleans style. Um, Sorry.
It's all right, I'm just checking,
Can
I'm
you see
preparing
that?
myself.
Boy, that'd be the meeting to come to, wouldn't it?
No.
So, in Appendix 4, I think it's great. I love all the suggestions. I have nothing more to add. Can we move on to the 500 policies? Okay.
Sure.
Yay.
Oh, I lost my.
So the 500 policies, we had this huge discussion back in December, kind of going through a couple suggestions with a fine-tooth comb. What we really decided to do was send it back to Joe to make sure that the terminology was up to date and the Iowa code references were in order. And of course, you have the 3-page memorandum from him breaking down everything he changed. Does anybody have any suggestions, comments, or concerns to make in regards to Joe's suggestions?
I would just say there's a lot of date changes, there's a lot of citation
Yes.
changes, there's some code changes that are in there.
Yes.
There is not, in my opinion, going through it, anything of substance in there. Probably, keep in mind, like, we changed these credit things so that they're in line with
Yes.
trimester counts. Again, lots of code changes and date changes, so lots of citation stuff.
And the credit things were kind of accidentally noticed in December.
They were, when we called through them,
That
that
was-
was one of the
I
things
think-
that came
I
up.
think it was Diane that said, why are we doing this?
Got a title change in here we found. So there's really nothing of substance from that standpoint,
Right.
So,
I,
just offer that up. And Joe had Crystal, go through it with you can see from the memo, fine-tooth comb on that, so.
so I'm thankful, as you can convey to Joe, thankful for his work on that.
Mhm.
And anybody have anything to add with the 500s?
Just if we go with the changes that are in there, the first page that lists them all.
Yeah.
There's just at least one change where it says corporal punishment, physical restraint. It should say physical force though.
Yes, in
one
the
is
table
that?
of contents. Yeah.
Oh, up top, did we miss that? Was it a thing that they noticed or just one you noticed?
Well, they changed it in the,
And we didn't?
they changed it in there, but not in the table.
Yeah,
of
so,
In the policy, but not in the
Yeah.
index.
yeah,
No, up here.
yep,
All right, right here.
503.5.
Okay. I'll make a note of that.
Physical force.
All right.
So I'll just say that loudly into the microphone. So 503.5 needs to be adjusted per the memo.
Is that a note to yourself, Kim?
It's a note to the boss.
Smart man. So I'm comfortable bringing the 500s as they stand now with the changes back to the board. We have to have that approved by them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Couldn't remember, it's been so long since we did that. Okay, anything before we move on to advocacy engagement? Great. So in December, when we said we're gonna put advocacy and engagement on the February meeting, I don't think that we had, at that time, planned on having multiple listing posts, which we have now had.
Mm-hmm.
But I anticipate just thinking about the fact that this is on our agenda, I anticipate that with us having about 7 months worth of discussions coming up, the floor is open for ideas on ways to advocate and engage.
On what level? I feel like Kid seat is needed everywhere.
Pretty wide open.
I feel like it's needed everywhere, so I'm struggling.
Well, ideally, I think our biggest focus for the next 7 months will be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
I've made suggestions, so my thing has been about social media marketing, videos,
Yep.
etc. have been very effective reaching people across different backgrounds, age groups, if we're able to use multiple. And it's all kind of tinkering that y'all got. Christian signed us up with like 20,000 accounts. We have ways to push things out to people. We can old school it with some postcards. Put a cute kid on
you know,
Are you talking the bond?
there. I mean, just F&P bond.
Yeah, because some of that stuff's gonna have to be done by separate committee.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, getting the word out, even about if we're doing listed posts and stuff, being able to use social media would be.
When do you anticipate the new website will be done?
January 31st?
So we're gonna be able to move it.
um,
Wait, next year?
No, it was, I saw, it was supposed to be up this January
wait.
31st, and our friends at Blackboard had some conversion issues, so we actually think we're going to be ready to go live here very shortly. The challenge has been our teacher pages, and they are balking at moving all of the teacher pages over, so we just may have to move our pages over, link the teacher pages to it, and then they may have to import their own pages, which is not the end of the world. It just takes a little bit longer, but we'll have the meat of the site up. It's already done, so Kristen was dueling with them today and was hoping to have a final answer for me by tomorrow morning.
I mean, I may have seen some of it already because Kristen was working next to me yesterday, but
It looks a lot better, doesn't it?
Yeah, how much more user, I guess, friendly will it be?
Very much so. One of the huge things about it is we know how many people access it
cannot use,
on the phone,
you
and you
cannot
can.
scroll
website.
over.
That's right.
You have to get like the edge of the S to
Yeah.
get school board.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, boop.
Yeah. And if
Terrible.
if your phone's clean and your finger's clean, you can get that
Yeah.
S. Otherwise, you can't get it.
Yeah.
So the new one is totally native ready. So when it shows up on the phone, when you're reading it from your phone, it knows it and it reformats it for you.
Is
So
it gonna make the words?
yes, it is so nice. I've seen it on the phone.
The
It
zooming
is.
of my life on this website.
Yeah,
is
it's
like-
beautiful. Well, you can't, because then as soon as you zoom it out, you can't see the link. It has a lot less clutter. I'll be honest with you, one of the things that really helped us out with it was we had thousands of web pages, and when you go through a conversion, you pay per page to import the new page, old pages onto the new. And so we were forced to clean out the garage as we moved over. So we tried to do it from an engagement standpoint. We tried to say, okay, as a person coming into the site, what things do you need up front? How can you make things one click away, two at the most, not 55 clicks to find what you're looking for kind of thing? How can we create one location for this file, but link it through where you would intuitively go to look for it? I can tell you 7 years in the district, I still will go in and say to Kristen, I can't find this. And then I just happened to meet the other day and she said, oh, you have to go in through parents for that. Like, why would I go through parents for that? So I think it's a lot more intuitive. So we hope that from that standpoint, for our parents, for our community members, for lay people who are not school district employees, it'll be far easier to find information. So to your point, from an engagement standpoint, if they can find what they're looking for, we are a much more friendly, accessible organization when it looks like we are trying to share our information. We've been sharing our information, but essentially what we've been doing is pulling our garage door up and saying, come on in and look for it.
Yes.
which is not been working real well for most people, including me. When I haven't been in the garage in a while, I can't figure out where things are. So
Camera's in there somewhere.
yeah, so
I
I think
I can't find it.
you've seen it. You know it is. It's far more streamlined. I think it's much more user friendly, and Kristen knows that my expectation was January 31st, so we're behind the 8 ball on that already. So she's working really hard with Blackboard to get what we can done and get it out.
I'm gonna know if it
So-
works. I'm gonna give it to my toddlers, and if they can get places,
Yep,
then I'm
That's-
know
If they
it's
crash
right
the
on.
district website,
It's possible.
we're all right with that.
they turned your phone a different
They
language.
did
didn't
turn
they?
my phone.
So, I guess here's a question. With officially district-sponsored advocacy and engagement, a review of what we can
Sure.
and can't do.
So it's very, very simple in a sense. There's kind of a bright line. We, 1, 2, 3, 4, we can inform about political issues. We may not, in our roles, ask people to vote for or against. We can technically take our hats off and be citizens. It's very hard, though, to separate those two. If I'm out in the community advocating for the bond, people are going to see me as the superintendent. So the recommendation that legal counsel would give you is not to advocate. If you're further down the chain, if you're a teacher, if you're a custodian, if you're a food service employee, and you want to take your hat off and be a citizen, absolutely. Because people see that separation more clearly than they do when it comes from me, as an example. We can inform, and so we will inform vigorously as we go through the process. We will present information, whether it's Rotary or Kiwanis, PTAs, neighborhood centers. We're out there sharing the message, and that's the 4 pages that we're working on right now. And so there's really 4. We've got them down to 11 by 17 sheets, so you can make a little booklet if you want to, or you can just use the sheets individually. One of them is the projects, one is the finances, one is enrollment history and projections, and one is attendance areas. We went very heavily on the infographics, so there are more pictures than words. We really tried to work hard to do that, picture captures 1,000 words idea, so you'll see lots of pie charts and graphs and bar charts and pictures and things like that. So you've got maps of the attendance areas and things like that. Less words, but hopefully conveying that message. So those are just about done. Actually, the 3 pages, absent the finance page, will be done by the end of the week. The finance page, we're waiting for the information from PFM, so they're doing the bond analysis right now. When they get that information back from us, Kristen literally within 24 hours will be able to have all that stuff plugged in.
So the 3 of us who are not district employees,
Yes,
what
you can
And-
advocate to your heart's content
and can we tell people?
to vote yes or no. You certainly can. You are totally entitled in
Just
your
wanna
will
be
to do
clear
that.
on that.
Yep. Yep.
One question on the stuff the 4 pagers that you guys are working on. Any chance that before those go out to everyone that some of us can see that?
Yep.
Like, you picked up on things like the horn thing wasn't on there, or,
Yeah.
just as a,
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't pick up on that. A horn parent picked up on that. But
There you go. I tell you what we'll do is Kristen's doing some revisions on them tonight, tomorrow. And those should be done, I would think, by the end of tomorrow, with the exception of the finance page. She's going to pull the numbers out of the finance page, so you'll be able to see it sans numbers. So we can push those out and ask you folks to review them, all 7 of you to review them and push it back. I've been doing that internally with the team, kind of on a rotational basis, push it out to the administrators here at the ESC, pick it apart, send it back, pick it apart, send it back. We did that with our chamber leadership group, which are all of our appointed officials in town. So Kelly and Ryan and Jeff and those guys have all been through it, picked it apart, given us feedback. So definitely push it out to you folks. And do that I think she'll have those cleaned up by the end of the day tomorrow.
and then just clarification, so yourself or the principals, they can make, their Blackboard calls when it gets closer to the election. You just can't say, make sure you get out and vote. You can say tomorrow there's
We can encourage you to vote.
Okay.
So we can say,
How to vote.
yes, not how to. So we can say, please remember, we have an election on September 12th. We will be voting on the facility master plan supported general obligation bond. I mean, we can do all of that. We just simply can't say vote for or vote against. That's why I said we will advocate.
I can.
We will inform vigorously.
I'll post it.
All right.
I think we as board members need to get that list from the auditor's office.
Oh, voters.
Of voters, frequent voters. Oh, never mind, it's already being done. Okay.
Sure.
Good. I will sit and make phone calls to my heart's content then. All right, good. So should we have any other planned focuses? Because there's certainly plenty to talk about, as you alluded to, Latasha, besides this.
Yes. There is. I think we grab a hold of whatever it is the district can put out as opportunities. And if we need to do more listening posts.
I do like being invited to have a listening post rather than saying we're holding a listening post.
Yeah, it would be nice if we can get on some agendas and things. I know that the district will do that, but it would be nice as board members if we would make sure we're getting on some of these different agendas and talking to folks. I mean, I don't know if that needs to be an organized effort, but it could be, hey, a simple email of, I'm on this agenda at this place, and I'll be talking about the pod. I mean, just so, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care if you tell somebody twice. I'm not worried about like cross-pollination. That's fine.
Right.
But I think, just the efforts that we're putting out, and that could be easily put into even our board reports of went to these different places and talked about the bond.
Would you like me to say that at DPO tomorrow?
Sure.
Please, we want you to invite us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, invite folks to come, as long as it's not at noon in the middle of the dang on day. I'm being very serious.
Yeah, I know.
There's something about that is not very cognizant of our community, and it, you can have every intention in the world, but like noon, if you saw my schedule, you wouldn't even believe that a human person does it. So it's like, if we could have variety of opportunities to reach folks.
No, I wasn't
Yeah.
specifically saying DPO, but like they'll go back to their
The
PTA.
details.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yes,
saying.
Which
I
are
mean,
more evening.
It would be nice if every once in a while DPO was in the evenings.
Mm-hmm. It would.
Just should be on the Tuesday.
It would. Okay. All right. So, okay. I don't know if we plan on having a solid plan, but I guess we can report back on that.
I think that as we start going through this, as we get in closer, I think a plan will emerge.
Sure.
Because then we'll have more information back from Steve about what those pieces look like. And out of that, we can also bring this up and put this on our agenda. Not maybe calling it an advocacy and engagement, but about at least gathering some information from other board members about ways in which people will engage the community to specifically talk about.
We could talk it at our retreat too,
True.
which is the 26th.
True.
Is this for sure?
Say again?
Is this for sure that date?
I think it is. I don't know.
What's
It's on
that?
Board docs.
The 26th is the date that's on there right
Yeah.
now.
I have 12 to
You three
4.
and Chris are confirmed.
Okay. All right.
One other question. I think I emailed you about it, but is there a way to get a simple explanation about how capacities were determined?
Yes, we are actually working on that. What I've got Dwayne and Kristen working on is two things. One is a chart that shows the history from 13 with the first facility master plan to today, and every time the numbers have changed. So that's so you can see the chart, but then a narrative, no more than a paragraph, so that here's a high point, December of 13, here's a high point, April of 15, here's a high point, January of 17, and just a layman's perspective about, okay, why did this change? What happened here? So that you can see that, ideally it's 2 sides of a sheet, paragraphs on one side, numbers on the other side. They asked me if they could bleed to 3 today. I said try not to. I'd really rather have it on one sheet so that people will actually read it and look at it. But I got to see Dwayne had the chart laid out today. It's looking really good, so you can see where numbers go up or down, and then you'll be able to flip it over one way or the other. You'll either read the narrative, look at the chart. If you're a chart person, you can read the chart, look at it, go over and look at the narrative. But they're very close to having that done.
So here's one other question, one other graphic that might be nice. We have the neat One Vision logo with the inverted,
Peace symbol.
yes, inverted peace symbol in the 3 colors. It would be nice to see that circle graph with all the projects yet to be done in each
Ooh,
section
I like that.
of the
Fancy.
district, because there's a lot of, oh yeah, well, na.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Kristen and I can take care of that very easily.
I mean, now if we're pushing on to page 5, I'd rather keep it
Well,
4 pages.
I would argue 2 of them.
Yeah,
Projects done, projects to be done.
that's true. Dollar amounts.
Man, this is getting to be a really large piece on it. I'm just saying.
Maybe not that.
You know what?
It's,
I just turn this over to Kristen and I say,
it's worth looking.
here's what Brian's thinking, and then she comes back with,
At least projects done, projects yet to be done.
yeah.
Let people maybe have to take the next
Let's
step.
see what you-
Otherwise,
And the
they'll
easiest
start
way to
saying
do
48
that-
million versus 47 million.
The easiest way to do that is in a video, to be honest.
Oh, so here's what we're doing with videos. We are at, what we're doing is a series of vignettes with the idea that you could watch them end to end, or you could just pull out individual pieces and they would stand on their own. We've targeted schools that have had major renovations, so think Twain, Penn,
Sure.
Corville Central. We've targeted new schools, so think Alexander and Borlaug. And we're interviewing students, staff, administrators, parents. I think she's also looking at some neighborhood people that may not have kids in the school but live around it. She's shooting a lot of raw video right now. And then she's looking at using, I think it's Animoto, to put it together, which would give her the opportunity to feed some of the visual, the staff member being interviewed, sometimes their voiceover with things on the screen, whether it's photos of the school or classrooms or things like that, and then put that all together. She's thinking attention span's about 3 minutes, so try to do 3 minutes on each of those schools, but then have one of those for all of those schools such that if you strung it out, you're getting close to the 25-minute type of thing, so that you could see it all together for people that want to see north, south, east, west, elementary, junior,
Should we
high
do
school.
vignettes of a kid with crutches trying to go up and down 3 flights of
No, that
steps
we're not
on
doing.
On a 95-degree day?
No.
We're showing what we want them to
Oh.
have. Yeah. This is all
If you focus
aspirational.
towards the negative,
This-
you'll get negative.
It's all aspirational, Ryan.
Oh.
This is
okay.
what you two can have. Here's Penn Elementary School. So, yeah. So she's in process with that. I know that they've done about half the videos, I think. Do you know?
Not sure.
Yeah, I think they've done about half of them
Well, I'm
so far.
excited to see them.
Yeah.
because I really
So-
feel like they could be very powerful.
I think
Mhm.
she had to share
Yeah,
the-
telling stories of those that have been affected by the positive change is huge.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're right, video is huge. I had telling student stories circled. That's important when it's circled.
Does
Yeah.
the Twain or Penn one, will it be focused on the reasons why you've decided that art and music rooms versus?
I don't know if she asked pointed questions that way, but I will find out. That's a good question.
Because
Yeah.
obviously it was a positive impact, which is why we
Yeah.
try to add them into the projects now.
And the nice thing about it is it's very easy for her to go back and ask those questions again because it's not a staged video. So if she hasn't asked those questions, she can go back and get staff and student and parent comments. to add to it.
And this is a dumb question, but we do have permission from students' parents.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just want to make sure
Amen.
we all
Yep.
know what the first accusation is going to be. So, cool, that's exciting. Sounds like a lot of positive stuff. Website, video vignettes, and
Yep. Flyers.
all right, I like it. Enough on advocacy engagement?
Gonna ask one more question.
Oh gosh, okay, Director Wrestler.
On the advocacy side, next Wednesday,
Next Wednesday.
when we go to the Capitol.
Yep.
I guess what is the expected outcome or intent for us going, now that some of the things we are
Part of it
asking
is,
for
We
are-
focus on the second and third legislative priority, right?
so I'm the chair for the UEN steering committee, so I spent a lot of time with Margaret trying to pick a date, and based on previous years, we thought that February 15th would be an ideal date because we'd be there before all the action took place, because we've gone later than that in the past and actually been there too early, so we had backed it up to the 15th thinking it was good. Obviously, that's a little bit of a challenge this year. We missed our mark. So yeah, there'll be some things done. I think there's some things that won't be done by that point in time, whether it's the work they're doing that they started on collective bargaining today. There's another, at least according to the conversation last week, there's 3 other pieces in play from a funding standpoint. They're still talking about equity for transportation, equity for funding, and at-risk funding. So I think there's an opportunity to have conversations with them about those topics. I think that, you know, for lack of a better way to describe it, it's never too early to start asking about next year. When you add this year in, the last 7 years, supplemental state aid has averaged 1.8%. You go the 10 years before that, it was 3.5 or something like that percent. So, you know, we're getting about half of what the last 7 years, we got about half what we got the decade before that. And I think that we need to make our voice heard, that if they continue to do this, we are going to wind up with some major sacrifices in staffing and programs. I think you're going to see that in some districts already this year. If you look at the sheet that came out, there are districts this year that, because of the 1-1, actually have negative aid because they're declining enrollment school districts. And even being on the property tax guarantee, they still will have less money next year than they have this year. So I think you're going to see some real pain across the state this year when this goes into effect. And I think that that's going to start being visible to legislators very quickly. And so, you know, one of the things I really want to start doing is talking to them about what their plans for the future are.
I guess one common theme that I kept hearing last night from the Republican side was flexible spending. Is that going to be something that's...
Yeah, and I think that's the other piece of the puzzle that hasn't been solved yet. And I think that I shared with the admin council today, they penalized us with the 1-1. And I think the next thing that they're going to do is give us the tools to solve that. But the problem with the tools is they rob Peter to pay Paul. You can solve the problem if you break your union. You can solve the problem if you get rid of your TLC coaches. You know, those are the kinds of solutions that they're giving us. So I think that's one that'll be in play next week, is the flexibility issue. So I think we'll be there from a timely standpoint to talk about transportation equity, funding equity, at-risk funding, and flexibility within categorical spending. So I think those 4 will probably be front and center when we're there next Tuesday, coupled with the interesting mess they handed out with collective bargaining today.
And then our time that day starts together with kind of everybody listening to where the state of
Yes.
affairs is and understanding what points we maybe should.
Yeah, if you
attack.
haven't been there before, we work with lobbyists from the UEN. We also frequently have folks from the Department of Ed, Department of Legislative Services, LSA is frequently there. We've brought in lobbyists from the other groups, ISEA, IASB. Sometimes they're time constrained, so we always go with the Department of Ed and the Department of Legislative Services folks first, because they'll give us the nonpartisan numbers. So we'll hear from them. And then Margaret Buckton's kind of the ringmaster of that. And then after we've had a chance to go through that, have people ask and answer questions, because a lot of our parents, this is all new to them. They've never been there, they haven't seen it, so they ask a lot of questions. Once they feel empowered, then we head across and go meet with the legislators. All 17 UEN districts are there this year. Last year, we did not do it as a day. If you went with me last year, I don't remember if anybody went with me last year, but last year we had a day there, and so we took a group of about 20 people there. It's great. We got one of the rooms, I think we had 116. We got a chance to talk individually with legislators. It was a great opportunity for our folks to talk to our legislators. It can be hard for, be candid, it can be hard for people from Johnson County to get an audience with anyone who's not from Johnson County. Because a lot of the other legislators, Polk County's good, but a lot of the other legislators, they don't want to talk to people from Johnson County. So if we're there with the other 16 UEN districts, we can partner up. So we can send a parent from here to talk to somebody from Sioux City or the Council Bluffs area, or even when you think about some of our smaller UEN districts, the Marshalltown area, where sometimes we don't get a chance to talk to those folks. And then the beauty of that is we get to tell our story to a legislator who might not otherwise listen to us. I think about Walt Rogers up in Waterloo, and with the Waterloo folks there, that gives us an opportunity to piggyback with them and go talk to Walt. So, and I was a little disappointed with some of his comments yesterday, to be honest with you.
Yes.
He spent a day in the Waterloo schools 2 weeks ago, and I talked to Jane Lindeman, who's the superintendent there, after that meeting, after he spent the day there, and she said that she thought she had him. One little girl came running up to the principal at one of the schools, and she was crying, and she came running up, gave the principal a hug, and the principal said, what's wrong, what can I do for you? And she just said, I'm hungry. And Walt he said, what do you do with that? What do you say to that? And he told Jane he didn't understand that before he saw it. So that's why I was especially disappointed in him yesterday. But
It's just sad.
It is.
To say that I couldn't understand this
yeah,
before I saw
Yeah. yeah.
how in the inside.
Latasha, there's so many
Sorry,
people.
my language there was about to come out there was not
There-
about to be.
We have a lot of people who live in isolation.
Yes, yes.
And they don't
yes,
see the challenge.
Yes.
They don't see the
yeah,
challenge. So.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we'll be at next week. In a sense, we're later than I would have wanted to be with the funding piece. On the other hand, I watched last night, and I'm not sure being there yesterday would have made a hill of beans.
We've just been shut out of any public comment whatsoever.
Yeah.
So at least we can focus on unfunded mandates and save extension as well as,
Yeah, we'll have an opportunity to talk that too.
Hopefully, you never know what's on the agenda
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I know. My God, I thought
I'm
collective bargaining.
serious.
I thought collective bargaining was Thursday. I was shocked they came out today.
but personally, I'd even like to see more local control,
Yeah, yeah.
allowing us to do,
That's still out there. You may need to talk to Amy Nielsen about that.
I'll work on it.
Yeah. So,
So, okay, so committee charters. I included the finance,
Mhm, I saw
financial
that.
oversight. It's an absolute,
It's beautiful.
it's beautiful.
it's beautiful.
It's just beautiful. It's got a lot of red, a lot of stuff that's crossed out and struck. I don't know, did anybody have suggestions on?
I mean, you cleaned it up quite a bit.
Yes, it's pared down a lot.
I mean, to me, when I reviewed it, it seemed closer to what we actually have versus we didn't really have anything before. I mean, we had something, but we weren't actively participating in it. So,
Well, I just don't want my eyes to be the only ones on this.
I can read it.
No, I know that's why I want to throw it out there and if you guys rip it apart.
No, I think I'm more in line with what Natasha said. It actually sounds more like what we actually do.
I mean, everything doesn't have to be super fancy. I mean, sometimes you just say
Direct.
ABC.
Mhm.
And to me, I just thought this was, everybody's a part of this. but there is a director,
Right.
and we'll meet as.
Well,
Now, my question is do we need to at least have one meeting? Because if I'm misreading this, it seemed like it was called if necessary.
call it necessary, you're
Which
right.
is the last paragraph.
Right, so, I mean, is there a need to have at least one meeting? Or maybe that's something we can even wrap into something else. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe the full meeting for the financial committee could even be a part of a board meeting. You know what I'm saying? Because if the full board has to be there anyways,
Mm-hmm.
then the check-in for that committee meeting could technically be the full board.
Yeah, and
Is
a lot
that
of
possible?
content has been moved to the work sessions right now
Sure.
and/or the full board meeting. So like even right now, we've got an ed committee meeting scheduled for the 21st. But in looking at the agenda for the 28th right now, it does not look that full right now. So even with the work session afterwards, we may just move the stuff from the 21st to the 28th, which then gives you guys a night, you know, because we're already, I mean, you guys are here, it seems like every Tuesday night. So if there's things that can be on there that we're going to be, because remember the ed committee is the board as a whole, so we might just move that into the work session to clean that up. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of stuff that we're doing right now that's showing up on board agenda or work session agenda as opposed to going to committee, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So from that standpoint, you're already meeting as a committee when you're meeting as the board. So if it's something that you want to address, you could easily do it in a work session or in the full board setting.
I mean, we can always double up. So if we're
Mhm.
doing the education committee,
Yeah.
we can also do the finance committee right after it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't think this is a long meeting.
No.
I think it's more of, we do kind of, Chris does a kind of quick check-in, like, how did it go? But I think there probably, I think that there is some merit in at least having at least one meeting and just having some, what have been some things that kind of have stuck out to you as we've been reviewing these things that we think maybe we should ask, other questions about. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like somewhere this committee needs to be a real committee that actually meets at some point. And so even if it's twice a year or whatever, I just think that that's the addition that I would like to see added is at least one actual in-person meeting to at least a review or
Mhm.
something about how our bills are going and, I don't know.
Well, and I think, the reason for the wording in that last paragraph was because our financial oversight activities are still only 1 year old. And this was suggested, I know, as early as 2014 by Craig, and then implemented in at the end of 2015. I think I wanted to give the Financial Oversight Committee the flexibility to kind of grow into its own and decide if they want to do just that, add meetings, or if considering the status of supplemental state aid, if there were future discussions that required the input of the board in a financial capacity.
It's possible.
It is possible. I thought it might be nice to be able to have that flexibility, that's all.
Yep.
But do we have to have it scheduled? Are you saying that you'd like to have it say?
I'm not saying it has to be
committee
scheduled, I'm just
Yeah.
saying somewhere throughout.
Somewhere
the school
down the
year
road,
or
yep.
The actual
Yep.
year, January, December, we should have at least one meeting or
And you're
at least
saying
have it as a.
When
you
it
have to
coincides
specify.
with something else.
Yes,
is
I'm just
what I
saying, like,
got.
if
Yep.
a couple of our committees are full board, so it's like,
Right,
can we
sure.
do this, like, if today, if whatever that meeting, operations was meeting afterwards,
Mhm.
if it was all us, then we would kind of,
Just
so
hang.
move it and, move it to the next thing. I just think that it could be helpful at least to have at least one meeting.
So should we specify that?
I just
Or
think
should we just leave it
at least
flexible?
that we can leave it flexible, but I think we should put some optional language in there saying that this is also a committee that could meet at
Okay.
least annually to go over the process of how our district is, whatever little fancy words you can put on there,
Okay. So would it be like a will meet or a may meet?
I think it should meet at some point over the course of the year.
I think, yes. I think at least one meeting with may meet additional times as needed, you know, kind of thing.
Okay. So
I mean,
no-
I know that's a part of the flexibility of not having it there, but I think it's nice to put that in there. You meet at least once, and then, you know, have options of additional meetings if needed due to financial crisis.
Oh, don't say that. We're not gonna have a financial
Don't say
crisis.
that. I'm just saying. Don't put that in there.
We're not
I'm
gonna-
just saying. We need to
Strike that
say
from the
that if
notes.
we need to get together, we have that flexibility to get
Oh.
together as an entire board and be the financial committee and
Yep.
talk about it.
At least to review how you
Yeah.
go about doing the work
Yeah.
with the financial.
Because I think it's a good thing that a standing committee is great, but it brings more validity to it if we at least have a discussion about it other than, look good, boy, they're killing it, Leslie, you're a great guy. You know, I think it brings a little bit more validity if we actually, if it's just one point and we're just discussing it, or, you know, whatever. But I think having minutes to that, having that is something that people can actually put
I'll try to figure
some
out the
accountability.
wording of that. It's a brief sentence.
Yeah, it's just one sentence.
Yeah.
I just
I
think
was
it could be.
trying- I think I got what I got what you did. I may give you a phone call just to make sure I'm getting it right.
One sentence, I trust you.
That's your first mistake.
I know. Gotta trust somebody.
Okay, so this is good. We're making progress here. All
Mhm.
right. So, Director Ressler, anything to add about the charters of the various committees?
No, because the other ones I think we've talked about.
We've
Yeah,
talked about
Yes,
that.
we
I'm
have.
excited. We're actually going to get to move on a lot of this stuff. This is good. This is
That's a very good thing.
This is a positive.
Reasonable time.
So maybe what I'll do is I'll bring back an additional sentence with financial oversight committee, and we'll bring that back at our next meeting.
Yep.
And then, in adding to, so that'll be Appendix 8 will be recurrent in our next meeting, and then we'll add on, if it's okay, I'd like to suggest that we add on the superintendent directions that are financial activities, financial planning and budgeting, and asset protection.
To the
That's
March.
2C, 2D, and 2E, which are scheduled policies for us to tackle.
Great. Yo. Knocking them down.
Knocking them down. I gotta be honest, I'll say this on record, I'm not incredibly excited about going over participation by the public at board meetings for the third time in 3 years, but it's coming. So that's one of the last things on there.
It's all right, we can't.
Calendar review. Oh, and the equity policy.
Yes,
Yay. Look forward to that.
that one will be a better one.
That one will be a good one.
Yep. All right. Very good.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Between you two, y'all motion everything, so I don't even try no more.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we're out.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Paul?